Hey, this is Jason Howarth with Panini. You're listening to the Sports Card Strategy Show. There is no off season.
This is Adam Rips with VFriends. I'm loving the content here on the Sports Card Strategy Show and the NoOffSeason.com Sports Card Network. There is no off season.
What's up, everybody? I'm Paul Hickey with NoOffSeason.com. This is the Sports Card Strategy Show. Don't forget to get a free 30-day trial at NoOffSeason.com today to help you make money flipping sports cards, build your sports card investment portfolio, get unlimited advice from our experts, and take sports card school to navigate the hobby. That's NoOffSeason.com. Get your free 30-day trial today. All the data we use on the Sports Card Strategy Show is from MarketMoversApp.com. Use code NOOFFSEASON at MarketMoversApp.com to get 20% off for life after a free 14-day trial. All right, let's get to the Sports Card Strategy. What's going on, everybody? Paul Hickey here with NoOffSeason.com, bringing in my main man, Kendall the Lefty McKee, joining me on today's full episode of the Sports Card Strategy Show. Lefty, we got a lot to talk about today, man. JJ McCarthy news, 2024 Bowman Chrome pre-order that I did not prep you for, but I want to ask you about. Of course, our top 5 cards to buy, graded, and flip. And then, that has some theme related to Lefty cards. For those of you who didn't check out Lefty cards on the NoOffSeason.com Sports Card Network this week, go check out that episode on Spotify or on YouTube. Go to leftycards.com to find out where to find that show. We're going to talk about a lot of the stuff that you talked about, but we are running your cards through the formula to have a discussion about it.
Great.
We'll talk about Fanatics Fest this weekend, and we will bring in Aaron Nook, the founder of Slabstox. So we're talking to him later on in the show. Stay tuned for that. It's a great interview. But Lefty McKee, how you doing today, brother?
I'm good. I had to slide into this podcast on 2 wheels, but I'm here. I'm ready to rock. I'm a little nervous / excited about running our cards through the formula, so I'm excited to see what that ends up looking like. And they're guys that I am excited about, so I will be curious to see what the formula says about some of my conviction plays. So
absolutely, that's what it's all about, man. So we'll say hello to Matt S in the live chat at youtube.com/Paul Hickey. And then for those of you that don't know, we stream live on Instagram at Sports Card Strategy. So we're just gonna shout out Card Seeker, Mike Erickson, Pretty Cool Cards, Adrian Charlie, Hartville Sports Cards, Dad's Dig Sports Cards, Live Family Cards. We got some action going on in the IG live chat these days. So George Schur also in the house. Listen, if you're listening on Apple and Spotify, which most of you are, or you're watching this back at youtube.com/Paul Hickey, don't feel left out. We love you. Drop a comment below at youtube.com/Paul Hickey. But if you're in the live chat, we will shout you out. So thanks for joining us. And Lefty, we'll ease you on into the show here today. So as I was recording the football card market update yesterday, and as Andy and Carter of the Football Card Quest were going live on Football Card Quest on YouTube, which you can get on this feed, by the way, Sports Card Strategy Show feed, news broke that JJ McCarthy, who looked good in his preseason debut for the Minnesota Vikings, tore his meniscus. Now, for those of you who don't know what's going on, basically they won't know what's going on until the surgeon looks at his meniscus and determines during the surgery whether or not it needs to be trimmed or repaired. So
the breaking news just came out that he's out for the season on a torn meniscus in a knee, reveals a repair is needed in surgery.
Okay, well, that was must have been
underwent a full meniscus repair
6 minutes ago. 6 minutes ago on Bleacher Report. You're right. So I was looking at 3 hours ago, Mike Florio on Pro Football Talk, but I see it here. Okay, there it is, JJ McCarthy. So for those of you who listened to Connor Barnett, who said buy Sam Darnold several months ago when the Vikings signed Sam Darnold before the draft, you could be in luck right now. You could be in luck. You could be cashing in on Sam Darnold cards for the next few weeks. That's for sure. Sucks for JJ McCarthy. Never like to see this, but thanks for breaking the news here, Lefty, on Sports Card Strategy Show. Let's talk about this happening, right? Like this. So I think there's some takeaways, which I'll let you talk about if you want to talk about Darnold, if you want to talk about McCarthy, if you want to talk about other quarterbacks that the Vikings might bring in, all that stuff. But I will say this. This happens, and this is one of the reasons why we typically say, from a broad standpoint, that you should buy football cards during November, December, March, June, when they're down, and then you should sell them all pretty much around this time, because like this will not be the last injury that we will see over the next 2 weeks, let alone maybe even 2 days, right? I mean, as people are listening to this on the podcast apps, there might be more injury news that happens. It's just the way that the NFL goes. So to mitigate risk, but also kind of limit your upside, we typically say sell your football cards in August during the hype cycle. But, you know, for the bigger names who probably won't be playing until week 1, significant snaps, it's okay to hold them, right? Until the first couple weeks of the season, roll the dice a little bit with the bigger names and try to get a performance spike. But Lefty, you know, just kind of talk about the McCarthy news, any hot takes you have here.
Well, I think I'm generally just down on this Minnesota Vikings team in general right now, especially until they figure out their mojo. Of course, you know, with JJ McCarthy going down, I don't think he was actually going to come. My opinion is he was not going to come into the season as a starter anyway. Sam was going to be the guy until JJ McCarthy was really ready, or Sam was going to be the guy until he looked horrendous, and then JJ was going to come in. But now that the second string, quote unquote, is now out for the season, you have a quarterback room of Sam Darnold, who we've not been impressed with previously, Nick Mullins, which has always been a guy that's probably overperformed what people expected, but still Nick Mullins, like he's bounced around in the quarterback room of a bunch of different teams at this point. And then we have Jaron Hall, who also has cards out there as well. And so I'm just not excited about any three of these guys. And I think the overall thing to remember here is this is a team that's moving on from a lot of past things already. You know, Aaron Jones is now new in this backfield. Justin Jefferson is still there, and he's their guy. You know, like JJ the jet plane is going to get his throws, but like who's going to get it to him right now? And then TJ Hawkinson is also out as well. So I think the biggest thing that this JJ McCarthy news goes for is Justin Jefferson has to be a sell for me right now, because I'm not, let me just put it this way. He's not a buy for me right now, because I think Justin Jefferson's market is going to be severely impacted by this move, because I think they're going to struggle to get him the ball as much as they have previously. And so I think the news that this could be the best for is maybe Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones might get the most touches differentials out of all of this work. So we will see how it goes. But the Vikings, I would say, if I would, if I was putting a bet on it somewhere, I would be putting an under on whatever their win performance is. So. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
I don't think it looks great for the Vikings, although you never know. They almost made the playoffs last year with Josh Dobbs and some other crap at quarterback. Sean Ingram, new name in the live chat. Hello, Sean. Good to see you. Thanks for jumping into the live chat here. Says, love the show, guys. Jaron Hall will be the starter before the season's over. Arturo Torres in the live chat says, just picked up a Darnold PSA 9 for $8. Worth it? ? Depends, Arturo. I mean, is it a Prism? Is it a Prism Silver? Is it an Optic, an Optic Hollow, a Don Russ? You know, what are we looking at here? Which card is it? It always depends on the card. You know, like is it a score? Yeah. You know, like a paper card? Is it probably not a Panini Instant, because I don't think they started doing those until more recently. Darnold's a 2018 draft class, I believe. But anyway, which Darnold is it? Hopefully it's maybe it's a Contenders rookie ticket auto Darnold PSA 9 for $8. That would be a win. I don't think it's going for that cheap.
I can see Jaron Hall being a play, though. I mean, makes sense to me.
I mean, it could be a situation where, like, if you can go on eBay and look at buy it now listings for Sam Darnold, or I guess Jaron Hall, and maybe they were priced as if McCarthy were healthy and the person hasn't adjusted the pricing yet based on the breaking news, that would probably be my biggest advice right now. I like that Lefty clarified his J Jets statement, because we were texting with Interner yesterday and you guys were talking about, the possible impact of this. My thought was, I don't think Justin Jefferson is a sell in these situations. And I think you clarified that well by saying, well, he's not a sell. He's just probably not someone that I'm looking to buy into. And I would agree with that, because I've run tons of Jefferson cards through the formula throughout the summer, coming off the injury and stuff. And the down year last year for the Vikings, and he's still up significantly. Like he's still Justin Jefferson. The hobby still loves him. So I think he's hard to buy into in general. But I do think you might have foreshadowed something a little bit, Lefty, with a potential down year for the Vikings. And you never know in the NFL, but a potential down year for the Vikings with this bad news coming out of preseason week 1. Maybe there's some buying opportunities for not only Justin Jefferson in November and December if there's another down year, but maybe, just maybe, when JJ McCarthy's first real investable cards hit the market, aka the Prism Silvers, the rookie ticket autos that he'll probably have, because I don't think, he's not Fanatics exclusive right now, so he should be a guy that signs autographs for Panini. So when those JJ McCarthy cards come out, hopefully he won't be so overinflated in value like rookie quarterbacks typically are, that maybe we'll be able to buy into him with some upside heading into his second season. Now that's quite a ways off, but that's the way I think about these types of injuries. Now, what does suck is, for anyone who bought now, as if it didn't already suck enough for us that bought the Panini Instant RPS First Look cards that were from May, and we still don't effing have them, Lefty. We still don't have them. It's August 14th. The sale date on mine in my Panini account is May 22nd. And we still don't have an update. And I went nuts on Monday's episode when you weren't here, but I went nuts saying, screw a production issue. Isn't Panini a production company? It's like saying we're just having an issue with our entire company right now, which it's probably pretty accurate.
It happened, yeah.
Anyway, it's just there. It sucks for all of us who bought those cards, because JJ McCarthy was like the number one guy in those cards that we bought. We should have had him a couple months ago. Should have been out of McCarthy by now. Instead, we're stuck with these things. So I guess that's the way it goes sometimes. Maybe it's L of the week. L of the week.
L of the week, yeah. I think we saw Anthony Richardson's value keep through the injury. Is kind of like people were like, they still had that expected hype for the big sale in front of them. And I think we'll still see that expected hype for JJ McCarthy's cards next season. So I still think we'll see a good dollar amount on these JJ McCarthy cards. I think people will respect his play as these cards begin, his premium cards begin to hit the shelves. I think we'll see that value stay in that north part. Like we saw Will Levis and Bryce Young's really fall off in comparison to Richardson, because they had already shown that they weren't necessarily going to be able to do it. Like JJ McCarthy won't be able to show if he can or can't do it. So therefore the hype will still be there, I believe. Just doing comparison to what happened with the Prism quarterback cards of this last release. So I could expect JJ McCarthy cards to still be well investable in the next 6 to 12 months when they hit the shelves.
Probably pretty true. I'm going to go ahead and take some of these comments in the live chat because they're related to what we're talking about right now. And then we're going to move into our next topic, which is the 2024 Bowman Chrome baseball pre-order. And so Arturo's was the rated rookie. So Arturo, we love you. Thank you for joining. Is it the Optic or the Donruss? You got to say Optic or Donruss. Very different price points typically. But I'm just going to say, regardless of whether or not it's Optic or Donruss, you paid $8. I think you're going to win on this card. So nice job. Yeah. All right. And then we've got Card Hunter in the house. Good to see the Card Hunter. Thanks for coming in. David Gallegos in the house in the live chat at youtube.com/Paul Hickey says, don't know if you guys covered him yet, but what about Stetson Bennett? So I talked a little bit about Stetson Bennett on Monday. Here's the deal, David. This is actually, Lefty's laughing, but I will say this. Here's the deal. Stetson Bennett is like the perfect type of guy. If you can find his card during, like at a card show in a value box during the off season when nobody cares about him, he could be like a guy that every preseason plays week 1 and gets a bunch of time, and then everyone like wants to buy his card because they're prospecting, or they're just thinking about like Stetson Bennett when they're never thinking about it. So just because of the hyper relevancy, his card prices go up. That's what I did. I bought a Stetson Bennett card at Culture Collision in January, thinking maybe he's going to be the backup for the Rams. The problem with Stetson Bennett holding a card of his or buying into a card of his right now is that Jimmy Garoppolo technically is the backup for Matthew Stafford. So you have to have multiple things happen during the NFL season for Stetson Bennett to even get an opportunity for the Rams during the regular season. And then even then, like, how is he going to play against actual defenses? So he played pretty poorly, 4 interceptions, I believe, against the Cowboys on Sunday in vanilla defenses, right? Like that's like backyard defenses right there, Lefty.
I just saw so many tweets about how many interceptions he was throwing, and then people were even turning it into like Kia dealership lines, like, I know how to throw picks, and my pick is that you need to have a new Kia. Like it was like they were already making Kia commercials for him, like former Stetson Bennett NFL interception man. So I don't believe in Stetson anyway. I think he's pretty old for coming into the NFL. It reminds me of well, I can't think of his name right now, but he's old coming into the NFL, and I just don't like the value there. So I'm steering clear.
All right, Lefty, while I give a shout out to everybody in the IG live here, get ready to talk about 2024 Bowman Baseball Chrome pre-order. So I'm going to ask you about it. So real quick, just want to say hello to Weebs Cards and Collectibles, MJ Sports Cards 24. Who is Blaze B? Canines by Chris, who's been like on fire in the IG chat of late. Kid HOF Collector, Stevo 343, Brew City Sports Cards, Johnny Utah Sports Cards, and Bob Solis 18. What's up, everybody? Brian Macklin in the house, Eric Gruenberger in the house. Good to see all of you in the YouTube live chat. Again, if you're listening on Apple and Spotify, drop a comment below at youtube.com/Paul Hickey or follow us at Sports Card Strategy on IG. So Lefty, as I was prepping for today's show, and as you were getting out of your work meeting, I threw something into the show notes because I got an email from Topps. And the email from Topps is, right now at Topps.com, right now, breaking news, you can pre-order hobby boxes and cases of 2024 Bowman Chrome Baseball. $269.99 plus tax and shipping, of course. And what I do know from Topps is that unlike Panini, they actually do get you your cards.
Yeah.
They do ship you your cards pretty quickly on time, whether it's Topps Now or whether it's these sealed products. So Lefty, quick overview for those of us in the audience who, like me a couple years ago, had no idea the configuration or the checklist or the way they did any kind of Bowman baseball product. What is Bowman Chrome every year? And then maybe talk about the product itself this year. Anything you know about who the chases are. Is this worth it? Should we buy Bowman Chrome 2024?
I'll just start out with the brief overview of the Bowman for Dummies show that we did. Typically, there's 3 major Bowman releases a year. One of the most anticipated and probably the most value-packed punch is Bowman Draft, which comes out at the December or January of every year. And it's typically the last draft class's intro into sports cards. And then there's Bowman Baseball in 14, which is mainly focused around rookie release, like rookie autos and things like that. And typically they hold back 1 to 2 of the studs from the draft class. For some reason, it's typically the second overall pick and then whoever else like they can put in there. And typically they pack it with like 1 or 2 front loaded guys from the draft class that they did not include in the Bowman draft. And then they put a lot of rookie autos in that. And then Bowman Chrome is kind of an extension of that. It's less paper, less cards. Like you're getting less just random stuff. It's a hobby product. So it's going to be focused around the hobby product rather than the paper product in the retail section. There will be a retail option, but it's just a more focused hobby product. But this specific release is to have a focus on the international free agency class and their first cards. So it's kind of like from Bowman's perspective, it's like the draft is how they're going to get people. Or Bowman draft will be how they get the drafted kids their first card. The Bowman baseball is kind of focused on rookies or maybe guys that have later developed. And then there's going to be maybe undrafted free agents, stuff like that. And then the Bowman Chrome specifically is usually focused on international free agency signings. And so guys that are super young coming from overseas. There are some interesting names in this product, but typically it is an oversaturated auto platform that is undervalued on the top end, and then they go for crazy money. So the real play here, I think, is if you want to play here at all, which is a risky play, not something I recommend, is buying autos of people and flipping them almost immediately. So like sometimes I remember there was a guy named, I think, Jose Rodriguez a couple of years ago from the Dodgers that had not done anything. Like he was like 17 years old and he was in the complex league, maybe hadn't even made it over stateside yet. And people were buying his autos for like $250. Like you could go out and buy a Bobby Witt Jr. Chrome auto for raw for less money than they were paying for this guy. And it was just incredible how the money that was being spent on these. So it's generally a product that I wait on. And so there's a couple of names though that are interesting in this release, and I'll talk about those for a second. The big chase, I believe, is going to be Leo DeVries, which is a guy that's highly touted, #1 international prospect, went to the Padres system. He's actually even going in fantasy drafts for more than the average $1, like the $1 international minor league free agency. For instance, he went for like $5 in ours. And so it's a guy that people know. It's a name that people know, and people are really excited about him. Vladimir Guerrero also has several sons in this release. You guys know Vladdy Jr. very well, but there's more sons behind him. There's Vladdy Guerrero and then Pablo Guerrero in this release as well. And then they also, there's Uesawa, which is a starter that came from the Japanese league and now is pitching in Boston. He has his first Bowman cards in this release as well. And then Robert Arias is probably the oldest prospect in this release, and he's actually already had some minutes with the Guardians as well. So those are guys that I think are key performers to look at. Of course, you've got Imananga's rookie cards and stuff in here as well, but the Guerrero brothers, I think, are going to be the big chases in this outside of Leo DeVries. And if you guys are watching with us live, you're seeing a dual auto of Pablo and Vladdy here together. So both of the Guerrero sons. Of course, we've seen how Junior has just taken the market by storm, and their dad is a Hall of Famer, and so they know how to play baseball, and they know how to play baseball really well, and they know how to hit. So that's probably going to be, if I'm going after anyone, I would be going after Pablo Guerrero right here. So
great stuff, Lefty. So there are some plays to be made out of 2024 Bowman Chrome baseball. Listen to Lefty. Don't buy the hobby boxes. You're just going to get crushed. I think if you're going to make,
there's
you're going to make
141 autos.
You're going to want to
not good.
Yeah, you're going to want to buy singles of really cheap singles of prospects. More on that to come. Lefty does a great job on Lefty cards. We'll talk about it more on the Sports Card Strategy Show in terms of like when the singles start to really hit the market, maybe who could be underpriced. And that's something that we follow really throughout every year. Like every day of every year, we're looking at all of these releases, kind of looking back at them, seeing who's Bowman Chrome first autos makes sense to buy. So there you go, Brian Macklin. Good stuff, my man. Thanks for asking. We had it already queued up for you for your question. We just answered it. So question of the day, drop a comment below at youtube.com/Paul Hickey. Are you pre-ordering 2024 Bowman Chrome? All right. We sold out of our repack, by the way. So thanks everybody who purchased one or more of the 30 repacks, high ceiling, high floor. Need I say more, Lefty? That's the name of it. So Maddox and I will be revealing that on the Sports Card Strategy Show. We'll do a special edition from Fanatics Fest. For those of you who bought one of them, you can all watch it. But for those of you who bought one or more of them, you'll see who you got. Then we'll ship them out to you. Card hunters pump for Fanatics Fest. I need more Fanatics Fest exclusive drops. I'll tell you this real quick before we get into top 5 sports card opportunities to buy, graded, and flip. Fanatics Fest. I'm going, Lefty, and I wasn't gonna go. And the reason I decided to go is because I need to figure out what the heck this thing is. And you know me, if I'm trying to figure out what something is, I need to go touch it, feel it, understand it, be part of it, so that I can report back to the nooffseason.com fam. So I'm going. I'm excited about it. And what I think what my play is going to be to try to get as many of these exclusive card drops to Fanatics Fest as I can possibly suck out of my VIP package that I bought, So I spent like $400 on the VIP package, and they dropped this thing. For those of you who don't know, there's a Cactus Jack Travis Scott release, right? And it's got like 50 of the top MLB players in it, some parallels. I think you get 4 packs, something like that. I'm getting the details wrong. Bottom line is, for all the VIPs, we're not really very important. We're just people who paid $400.
Sure you are.
Thank you. We got the ability to get into a drawing to win the prestigious honor of buying one of these, right? So it's not that we won one, it's that we won the ability to go buy one. So I got an email from Topps today, since I followed Fanatics Fest and Topps on Instagram, as if they don't need any, as if they need more followers. I mean, we're the ones that need more followers, Lefty, not them. But I went and followed them and submitted my little confirmation number for my VIP package. And guess what? Yours truly, Paul Joseph Hickey, has the ability to go buy one of these Cactus Jack boxes. And I'm going to do it because I think there's only 1,000 of them and people are going to want them. I don't even know how much they cost, but I have the ability to go buy one. And I think I'm like Card Hunter. I'm going to go to Fanatics Fest. And I know there's going to be a card show element to it. I think I'm going to ignore all the fan stuff. Like I, as much as I love Anthony Edwards, I don't care about meeting him. It's pretty badass that guys will be there that you can meet, but I don't care. I'm not going to stand in line to meet those guys. I'm going to go to the card show. I'm going to vlog a little bit, do the reveal with Maddox, and I'm going to try to get as many of these exclusive drops as I possibly can, and then list them on eBay, baby. All right, Lefty, you did a great job on Lefty Cards on Monday, talking about some guys that you like right now to buy into, and one guy that you and Chase Krim said to buy into back in June, who's up now, which was great. Great work by you guys, and nice job reporting that to the nooffseason.com fam. So, top 5 sports card opportunities to buy, graded, and flip. What we do, you and I do every Wednesday here, we look at the formula, we run some cards through it, and then we're like, hey, what are 5 of the ones that make the most sense to talk about, where people can go out and they don't have to guess, they can just look at our data and they can say, this is an opportunity. Not only is this card down, but based on historical data, it should come back up. And because we like a particular player doesn't mean that all of their cards have the opportunity to make money on them. So I'll just remind you, the 3 basketball players you talked about were, I think we're on the same page with this. Tyrese Halliburton, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Jason Tatum. I think common sense would tell us, look, these guys, they didn't achieve personally what I think many of us thought they could have achieved in the Olympics. SGA and Tyrese, while they didn't have the crescendo of winning the NBA championship like Tatum did, they still played pretty darn well and took their teams far into the playoffs, probably having the best season of their young careers. So they're all kind of off the radar right now, right? So I think you made the point on Lefty Cards generally that you're looking to buy some of these guys. So all I wanted to do is try to help you out. I just wanted to help you out and say, I'm going to piggyback on what Lefty talked about on Lefty cards. I'm going to run these fuckers through the formula, and I'm going to tell the audience right now what the best Halliburton, SGA, and Tatum cards are to buy right now based on the formula. All right. And then we'll talk about the baseball player you talked about, which coincidentally enough is the brother of two guys that you already talked about a minute ago in Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Okay, so let's go basketball first. So Tyrese Halliburton's 2020 Prism Silver PSA 10. We talk about the Prism Silver PSA 10s for hoopers and football players all the time as like the card. And the reason why we do that is because we see historically, as we look at past data and as we experience the current, the present, etc., we see the Prism Silver PSA 10 with the lowest entry point with the highest upside per low entry point is the best way to say that. So right now, based on the current entry point for Halliburton's Prism Silver PSA 10 out of 2020 is $280. Historical data tells us that in October, November, that card should be over $350, which puts us at not a huge ROI, but a 5% ROI. Now, I think that's one potential selling marker is just the beginning of the NBA season. But Halliburton's a guy that you actually really like to potentially make a run and have an even better season and be an even more significant NBA player, right? So talk about that real quick, because I think 5% is not going to get a lot of people excited, but just the fact that there's ROI there, being that card is down compared to where it should be at the beginning of the basketball season. The audience likes high upside. I like high floors, right? Because I'm risk averse. So talk about Halliburton and what you think the upside. This is a card that you've purchased. So you know this card really well in terms of its past pricing. You've followed it. So where do you think this card could end up? What do you think the upside is realistically for these people to maybe go above 5% here?
Yeah, I think the upside. So the formula has this at 366, if I'm reading it correctly, and I think the upside. That's probably. We've talked about how conservative the formula is many times. I think 410, 415 is probably where this card couldn't get if they do what I imagine they will do. It's a second year this team is together. They've already outperformed expectations last year. I think Mathurin and some of those other guys that are now growing into who they can be. Tyrese Halliburton has definitely grown into who he can be, and Miles Turner is right there as well. I believe this car ends up around 415, but I do think that you said the exact same thing that I wanted to mention. I think Tyrese Halliburton has a high floor. He's a high floor guy because you're not paying the premium of his name already in the price. For instance, if you were to buy Booker right now, you're paying the Booker name price already, and then you're going to have him improve on that. On the back end, it's fine to have name recognition. On the front end, it's like, wow, I'm already paying for this name recognition. I think you can ride Tyrese Halliburton becoming name recognized in this next season. And so that's why I mentioned him. And now what we did on the Lefty Card Show, I'll just say it again. We use the Prism Silver as a moniker for kind of a reflection of their entire market share. I know that's not exactly a representation, but it's an easy thing for me to be able to track where the attention spectrum is for these players. Now, the important thing is to run these cards through the formula and see where you can have larger marginal returns on other aspects of other potential cards they have. For instance, Halliburton has other cards that are out there. I flipped and sold several of his autograph cards last year that were from different releases that I'd never heard of. I bought them from Krim, and then I ended up selling them for a lot later when they were making a playoff run. So there is ways to make money on these things. I think it's as a conservative floor of 5%. I'm willing to bet on that being more than 5%. But I love the fact that the conservative super conservative play is still making you money. So
yeah, and I do think in addition to that, Halliburton is a guy that if he can get the Pacers past a couple of rounds of the NBA playoffs, I think you could see the Anthony Edwards effect with his cards, where Edwards is Prism Silver from the same year, 2020 PSA 10, went from like a $500 to a $600 card all the way up to like a $2,000 card in May. Now, I think like Edwards is a different type of player than Halliburton. So I don't know that Halliburton could get necessarily all the way to 2,000 like Ant-Man did. But I do think Halliburton's a guy that could, this card, like I think that your 415 is right on the mark in terms of like a conservative estimate. I think if he were to far exceed expectations, this could be $1,000 card potentially. But like that is not what I'm banking on. I do think this is a safe investment. It's something that cards like this would be what I would encourage all of us to have. Like 80% of our portfolios should be in cards like this. And then the other 20% should be in like maybe some of those raw, like higher risk, raw to grade, like higher dollar plays and things like that. Whether you're trying to grade a Prism Silver or a Bowman Chrome first auto or something like that. So just generally speaking. Now,
I also want to move cards before the playoffs at this point. So like,
which is tough to do for the NBA. I think it's easier to do for NFL. It's probably easier to do for Major League Baseball. What I've noticed is that for NBA cards, it's tough to make a lot of money at the beginning. You can make some money at the beginning of the season, but you would have had to buy in at the correct point in order to do that. Or you would have had to have success with the raw to grade. Now, I agree with you, like selling cards before the playoffs, but it's tough to do because what I've noticed in the NBA is that to really, really make money on NBA cards, the guy really has to go off in the playoffs. That's when the prices shoot up. But sorry, go ahead. Finish your thought there.
I was just going to sell during the in-season tournament.
Yeah.
And because that's like it's kind of, to me, I kind of in my head view it as like the all-star break for baseball. Like it's kind of the mid-season where everybody's like, okay, I've been betting on this guy and I'm going to get out of him now. And then there's a bunch of the people that you're needing to sell to. I mean, let's put our hat in that camp for a second. They are going to say like, okay, this guy's going off in the in-season tournament. He's going to ball the rest of the season and the Pacers are going to be awesome in the playoffs. That's the guy you're wanting to sell to because you're wanting to theoretically, the buyer either needs to love the card and PC it, or they think that there's more potential return into it. And that's when they're going to press the buy button from you. And so, like, I think if you like LeBron cards also had this aspect in the in-season tournament last year. Of course, the Lakers and the Pacers were the people in the finals, but we talked about Giannis being a good in-season tournament sell as well. Connor did a lot of work on this last year where he was talking about in-season. We thought about maybe the Raptors would have been a team that could have been a team that guys could get. I think OG Anunoby was a guy that we were really excited about last year because this Raptors team had the ability to be young and be first to the championship type play. I think I haven't evaluated that much yet, but I think there's a couple of teams that I would be willing and interested in to look for that in-season tournament being the spike that I'm going to sell on rather than the big moments in the playoffs. So what I mean is I'm going to buy back in after I sell those cards at the in-season tournament, wait 2-3 weeks, because Halliburton's prices fell massively. They were like 410, and then like by the time February rolled around, they were like 260. Of course, there was a little bit of an injury for him and some other things, but there was like you could have sold that Prism card, come back in, and then sold it again in the playoffs. And so I think like it's kind of like an inhale, exhale from the exhale would be the in-season tournament, inhale right after that, and then exhale in the playoffs. That's
I'll totally validate that. I think getting in and out is the way to make money on all sports, not just basketball. And I think you just outlined a perfect potential strategy for doing that with this upcoming NBA season. And so just going to another one of the guys here that we hit on, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So you mentioned on lefty cards, and I totally agree with you. I think he's a top 5 player in the NBA. And I think he's going to be a top 5 player in the NBA for years to come. And his 2018 Select Concourse PSA 10 has an entry point of $48 right now. And so it's a little bit less sexy than the Prism Silver, but it's also significantly cheaper. And you can make more money on that for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You can make 28% ROI just buying his 2018 Select Concourse PSA 10. Now, a lot of people ask, premium members at nooffseason.com ask, how do you find the cards for this cheap? And the answer is it's hard, but that's what the formula is helping you do. It's helping you pinpoint what you should be paying for a card so that you can actually make money on it. If we weren't doing this, who knows what people would be paying for cards, and we wouldn't be doing our job, because we might be saying, well, we like this guy or we like this card, it's down right now, blah, blah, blah. But what the formula really checks us and says, if you can get this card for this price, you will make X amount on it. If you can't get it for this price, you should probably think about fading it. So Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's 2018 Select Concourse PSA 10, not going to be an easy card to get for $48. But remember, we also update the data every single day, and it's based on the most recent comp. So we're not making it up. Somebody literally just went and got the card for $48. So if you and Lefty, as you and I know, and most of the audience knows, the pricing is always based on the latest comp anyway.
Yeah.
As long as you can prove that it's not if somebody proves it's a bogus comp, that's another story. But if it's a legitimate comp, that's what everybody's going off of. So 28% on that. And then you can make double the ROI on Shai's 2018 Optic 162 PSA 10, because it's a lower entry point based on recent sales data, $41, with a similar exit point of $75 in October versus $77 in the Select Concourse. So 46% ROI on that particular card. Now, also keep in mind that the formula does, on the ROI percentage, to Lefty's point, become very, very conservative, because it takes out fees. It takes out like more eBay fees than eBay will actually take out for you, because we want to make sure that you guys are all making the right decisions. So there's a lot of Shai cards that you can make money on, but these are two that if you can get these cards for the target price, you can make some significant ROI, and you can have less than $50 and do it. So that's what I like about these two cards. Lefty, talk about not only these two, because we've talked about these cards before on the show, but they're still two of the top cards that the formula likes to buy already graded and flip. Now, the selling marker here would also be October, but talk about what Shai's prices could do throughout the season, right? Like, he could be like, the Thunder could be in the NBA Finals. So
absolutely.
I think he's actually more of a hold until May or maybe even June. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this Thunder team is going to quickly dominate people. I think they are going to come out the gate very fast, and I think people are going to have to really play to their style. They are a 3-and-D team, but also they are going to run it right down the alleyway to you every single game. Shai's a cutter. You got Jay Will is a cutter. J-Dub is shooting threes and also playing well. You've got Chet out there. You can't forget that they just brought on Alex Caruso. They also brought in the 5-man. I mean, this guy, they're a team that improved on every one of their weaknesses, including financial cap. Like, it's crazy. Like, this Sam Presti for president, honestly. And I'm very high on this team, obviously as a fan, but obviously as well, this team is positioned really well to compete. And their bench is very deep as well. So, like, their in-season tournament odds are still good as well, because their team is so deep. I worry about some of the teams that aren't so deep, that are really positioned to try to do the best basketball at the very end of the year. I'm worried about the Lakers this year. Maybe they focus on the long-term goal rather than the short-term goal, and so maybe we see Bronny play a lot in the in-season tournament. But then we see guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's young enough, and he still has enough to prove that I think he will ball out every single game. He's not the kind of guy that's taking a game off, and he could legit be MVP status.
How you make money on basketball cards is you go get the number one player on a potentially top tier team, and nobody fits that bill better, I think, especially from an underpriced standpoint, than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I mean, his rookie cards are in a Clippers uniform, but it's not going to matter when he's balling out. Those are going to be the cards, especially the ones that we just talked about, that are going to go up the most. So, all right, last basketball player real quick, Jason Tatum. Now, at nooffseason.com, there are a lot of Jason Tatum cards that you can make money on right now per the formula that are already graded.
Yep.
So check that out. But the one that we just added to the formula that you can find, and nooffseason.com can help you find it on his player profile page for the target price of $235, is his 2017 Optic Hollow PSA 10. Now, we know the further back you go, the weirder the cards get compared to the cards that we're used to see pulled today, right?
Yeah.
So like Jason Tatum's optics to me have always been a little weird. Like back then you had like the red and yellow, and you had like just kind of some weird stuff coming out of 2017. And even Shea has some weird stuff in 2018. But this Optic Hollow PSA 10 not only feels like the right card to me, but the formula says you can make a 36% ROI on it. So as you have Jason Tatum, who's still super young, a lot of young basketball fans and young collectors love Tatum, and they should. I mean, he's just won a championship. He was knocking on the door of a championship a couple times before he won one. Never mind his weird playing time situation with Team USA. The guy's going to be one of the best players in the NBA again. He's the top player on his team, even though some Celtics fans or NBA people would maybe argue Jaylen Brown. Okay, I get it. But Jason Tatum's number one. If not 1A, then he's 1B. And you can make 36% on this in October if you can find it for the $235 price. It's a $400 card in October. So that's a 36% ROI. Now, I think the thing with Tatum, Lefty, let me know if you agree with me on this or not. I think the thing that Tatum has stacked against him is I don't think his upside from a hobby perspective is as high as Shea or, dare I say, Halliburton, and probably Anthony Edwards, because Tatum just won a championship. So historically, what we see from players when they win a championship, even going over, like never mind Jokic and Giannis, because they're two great examples of it. Even if you go to another sport, Patrick Mahomes, when players win a championship, then they win another championship. First of all, it takes another championship to see a price spike. But when Mahomes has won more championships, it doesn't even really spike his prices. So like it brings them back up to where they were versus when earlier in the season, but it doesn't spike them higher than they were prior to their first championship, is what I mean to say. So I think with Tatum, I would caution anyone who wants to try to hold for a Celtics back-to-back, because I think his card would definitely go up more than $400, but I don't necessarily think that that we're going to see an astronomical spike, just because historical data across sports in the ultra modern hobby it doesn't respond necessarily the way that you would think it would for like a second finals or Super Bowl appearance or second Super Bowl or NBA championship. So that's why I think SGA and Tyrese actually have more upside than Tatum, even though, I mean, if you can get this Optic card, Optic Hollow PSA 10 for that target price, I would definitely do it and then sell it in October.
Yeah, I think people are always looking for the next winner, right? And when you've proven you're a winner, you've supplanted your status on a floor, but your ceiling is, you've kind of reached the ceiling at this point. At this point, you're going up maybe with inflation rather than expectation. You know what I'm saying? And so you've reached the expectation, and so we've seen what their ceiling can be probably already. So,
Lefty, do me a favor while I read this next sponsor read. Go to gemrate.com and look up your guy Kumar Rocker's 2022 Bowman Draft Chrome First Auto Raw. Look up the gem rate at gemrate.com. Just give me the gem rate, but hold it for a second while I do this sponsor read. And then what we're going to do is we're going to run Kumar Rocker's 2022 Bowman Draft First Prospect Autograph through the formula, and we're going to let the formula tell us whether or not this is a good raw to grade play. And Lefty's going to give us a little context around that. So are you ready to start grading your cards? CGC Cards is the perfect place to slab your favorite sports cards. From their crystal clear holders to their affordable pricing, CGC Cards is the perfect stop for your grading needs. go to cgccards.com to start grading today. We love CGC cards, and there's a lot of great plays that you can make with CGC slabs, which we'll talk about soon on the Sports Card Strategy Show. So Lefty, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give everybody, and this is free, so you don't need to be a premium member of nooffseason.com to do this. You can go to nooffseason.com and you can click on this wonderful little link here. If you hover over sports card rankings, sports card ROI formula calculator, very official here. So we're just going to put in Kumar Rocker, 2022 Bowman Chrome first prospect auto. And then our target cost, Kendall the Lefty McKee.
2023 Bowman Chrome.
Okay, well, it's saying Market Movers is saying 2022 Bowman Draft is what this is out of. Is that not correct? 2022 Bowman Draft Chrome first auto.
That's probably right. I was looking at it on.
So $30 is the target cost based on the most recent comp, which was yesterday. So we put in $30. Now the grading fee, typically I'll just put 21 in here because it's a PSA bulk value submission. Or you can grade with us through nooffseason.com if you're a premium member. You're basically paying the same amount here. So your total cost is because you're not going to have to pay the shipping fee when you grade with us. So total cost $51. Now the PSA 9 price, according to Market Movers, last PSA 9 was $55. And the last PSA 10 was $103, and that was yesterday. So 59 in the PSA 9, 103 in the PSA 10. And Lefty, were you able to pull a gem rate for us?
Yes, I got it.
Okay, what's the gem rate for this card?
For PSA 10, the gem rate is there's 124 total PSA 10s out there, and there's 56 gems, which are 45.2%.
Okay, so the way that you would do this in nooffseason.com is you would do 4.52, 45.2%. That's going to be the way that this calculator handles it. And then it's going to say your projected average sale price that you're likely to get across all grades is $75 per card. Your projected so now all you need to do is put in an arbitrary profit goal number. I typically use $1,000. So it's saying the ROI for this as a raw to grade play is 17.5%. So that's pretty well done by you, Lefty. That's pretty well done by you. Now, it's not overwhelmingly like a 30 or a 40% raw to grade. So it would probably be somewhere towards the bottom of the rankings. But anytime you get a positive ROI, like somewhere between 15% or above, I think you're then hoping for something else that's in the news cycle, whether it's a call up or whether it's a top big league performance, for Kumar Rocker to happen to spike that ROI, maybe double or triple that ROI number. Because if you click, should I buy this card? The formula is going to tell you, no, there are better opportunities, because this calculator is basically going to tell you, you should probably look to buy cards with a higher ROI percentage because there are so many of them. But the fact that, like I said, the fact that there is a positive number here is a good sign, because if you were to pair that together with some of the performance-based stuff that you talked about with Kumar Rocker on Monday's Lefty Cards episode, then you could have a winner. So Lefty, I'm going to hand it over to you. Walk us through briefly how do you feel about what the formula told us about this raw to grade play? Are you in on this? Are you going to do this?
Absolutely. I've already done this. I've already bought several of these, and I've had them, and I'm preparing to already do this at a 17% return as of right now. I think it cannot, like, if we're already at a 17% return, nobody even believes in him yet. As soon as somebody nationally attention wise gets a fact of like, this guy's throwing absolute discus out here and people are trying to hit it. Like, not only is he huge, not only is he throwing gas, but he's also throwing sliders that are breaking 12.5 inches. And he's also, the gem rate is fine. All these things are putting it together to where it's a good play. Plus, he's a name that people love to love already. People have forgotten about him at some level because he came out in 2019, but he was doing the exact same things as Paul Skeens had done previously. He just hasn't done it at the major league level. Now, what I'm not waiting to do is I'm not waiting to see if he becomes Paul Skeens at the major league level. But if you can get a 17% return now, the ceiling is very high on this card, I believe, because those numbers and that projection are projected from right now. That's no call up. That's no statistical like awesomeness. There's no, Rangers pushing him up the 40-man roster. There's no they know what they have in Kumar Rocker. They drafted him knowing that he needed elbow surgery. I do not understand where the negative press is coming from. And I had this same discussion with Aram last week, and he goes, I think it's unfair for people to be down on Kumar Rocker because he's definitely still one of the best pitchers in the minor league. That's coming from a guy who doesn't like the Rangers and who doesn't believe in top arms and has a lot of downside on pitchers' marketability. So this is a guy that's already baked in all those things to still tell me that Kumar is a guy that's going to become a real asset for the Texas Rangers. The Texas Rangers need somebody to come in and be a guy that they have drafted well on. And I think Kumar will be that. And as soon as he does reach that public attention, once the media really starts getting behind, like he's put 3 or 4 starts together. When he starts having 5 to 6 put together, people are going to start media attention wise, really driving his prices back up. And I don't see how these will be $100 in the future. I mean, you can just look at the listings on eBay. Some of the buy it nows are already at $300. So people are expecting this card to rise once Kumar's attention rises. And I think now I'm not saying go buy those cards, but I think they are a good moniker for where people are expecting his card market to go. And I'm in on this card. I've already made some raw position plays that I can go grade myself.
Lefty, I totally love where your head is at. I love looking for these types of patterns and similarities. You talked about physicality, stature, ability to throw, the heat, all the different things from a baseball standpoint that are similar about these two guys. You talked about how, from a draft capital standpoint, how similar they are. And the really only difference is the injury history. And you talked about the injury really not even being a serious one when it comes to
it's a very normal injury.
It's become a very, very normal injury. So great stuff, Lefty. I think I'm going to be making this play as well. I'm going to, the gem rate is one thing. It's good to talk about the gem rate being 45%, but on a raw to grade play, I think what's more, and I'll always die on this hill. I think what's more important than the gem rate. The gem rate is part of our formula, by the way. But what's more important than the gem rate is the card that you're about to buy. Does the card that you're about to buy look like it can gem? Because you can have a 1% gem rate, but the card that you're about to buy might not have been graded yet, and if it looks like it's going to gem, then yeah, maybe the 1% gem rate can deter you, make you feel a little bit leery, like you're taking a risk. But if it looks like that card could gem, that's more important than a low gem rate. Kumar Rocker has a 45% gem rate. I look at gem rates all the time. That's a pretty standard gem rate for an ultra modern card. It's not low by any means. It's not super enticing, but it's not low. So I like it. I like the play. All right, Lefty, here's what we're going to do next. We've got a power-packed interview with Aaron Nook, the founder of Slabstox, and he and I it's about a 20-minute discussion. So Lefty, you're going to sit back, you're going to relax, you're going to watch this, and then I'm going to get your reactions to what Aaron and I talk about here. And everybody, let's jump in and drop a comment below at youtube.com/Paul Hickey. Kumar Rocker, yes or no? Aaron from Slabstox, yes or no? Let's go. I'm excited to welcome in Aaron Nook from Slabstox. Aaron, welcome to the Sports Card Strategy Show and the NoOffSeason.com family. How you doing, man?
Good, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the invite, and always love talking cards and joining interviews when I can. So thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. We appreciate your time. So the Sports Card Strategy Show, our favorite thing to do here is to help people make money flipping sports cards. But there's a lot of great things about the hobby. I wanted to just start off by asking you, what is your favorite thing to do in the hobby?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like I started at a super young age. It was like 2008. I was about 10 years old when I really got into it, and I started collecting. Like I just loved football. I loved learning the stats from the cards themselves. Obviously, that's before a lot of the social media and internet and stuff like that really boomed. And that was kind of my way to get more into sports along with fantasy football at like a very similar time. So it's a really good way for me to like have a leg up, was collecting the cards. Then I played fantasy football with my middle school friends, and I just felt like I knew more players because of that, because I was seeing them more regularly, learning their stats, and that's kind of translated all the way until now, where like I'm still collecting every day, every week of the year, where I've have massive Brewers PC, different tennis stuff, just different stuff I really like to collect. And obviously along the way, a lot of that changed, from back in 2008 when there was not many people in the market, not too much buying and selling, a lot of trading at shows, that type of stuff, like up until now, where we went through 2 to 3 years of super high activity selling. And there still is a lot of high activity selling now, as you saw at the National, I'm sure. And just way more for myself, like this has become a business. It has become, every day of the year way to look at it from a business perspective, buying and selling not only other cards that help me fund my PC, but then from the breaking perspective too. We run a very large breaking operation on Fanatics Live, which has become, pretty much the biggest thing that we do as a business. And then on top of that, for us, it's always, how do we educate collectors? How do we keep publishing content? How do we keep publishing daily newsletters to keep that discourse going? Because without the content, without collectors really engaging with each other, that's, for me, when I was younger, the biggest difference to today. It was like an endpoint. It was like you open a pack of cards, and what do you do after that? Or you go to a show, and then you're back home, and then what do you do after that? Now it's obviously a daily thing for everyone, pretty much. That's really into the hobby, is social media and direct messaging and all that stuff.
Yeah, so from creating content, the Daily Slab newsletter, Instagram content, the data analysis, the breaking, attending card shows, helping collectors, grading a little bit. I know you grade through SGC. How do you stay focused, man? How do you stay focused on like helping not only collectors and investors get the best information, but also yourself in terms of all the different things that you're doing as a collector, as an investor, et cetera?
Right. Yeah. I mean, throughout the years, like my time has really adjusted on where I'm focusing and what I'm doing. Obviously, to do all the things we have done or are doing now, it's impossible to do as one person. I've got a few people who help from a content perspective in the newsletter itself. I used to have some people help with social media, but I do a lot of that myself now, still today. And it is difficult. I mean, it is difficult, even with a team of some part-timers plus like a full-timer or two. It's not the easiest thing when you're talking about, as you mentioned, like 5 different things to cover. Because we've run the Daily Slab newsletter every day for about 3 to 4 to 5 years now. It's switched a little bit along the way, but it's definitely a time-intensive thing. And for me, like, I'm final editor on it still today, so I'm reviewing the information that people are bringing to me and stuff like that, and then getting it into the reader format. And I help with ideas here and there based on the hobby or the sports and this and that. But in general, like, for us, there was it definitely, like a couple of years ago, was a lot more like, let's try to pick up as many trends as we see as we can and publish them to people, which we still are doing. But just really with how Topps has been acquiring all these licenses, there's many more products that they're making now, and many more products that we're reviewing and publishing set information on and breaking in the end too, to where that obviously has taken a lot of my personal time, as I'm live streaming 5 to 6 days a week, sometimes 7, depending on if the week's extremely busy. And luckily I'm a good multitasker, so I find ways to make more time in the day than what there probably is for how much I do. That's just been a blessing for myself, to be able to kind of sustain all of the content at the same time as figuring out how to build on Fanatics Live, which launched like just a little over a year ago now. And we were the, I'd say like 3rd company that got on there to actually, start streaming product. They did a couple of streams live from the All-Star game with Stephanie from Mama Breaks, who is is the best that there is in the hobby. I love Stephanie. And then she breaks on there too. But we were pretty much like the 3rd company on there that actually started breaking. So we're on there really early, and just ever since then, just started to build up what we were doing, and now have a 2-studio office that we're operating off. So it's pretty fun to see the growth from my team and where we started, which was breaking out of a basement, to now being actually able to have an office, which is cool.
Absolutely. Congratulations on the growth. It's kind of funny that you mentioned that, because I became familiar with your content probably about 3 years ago. And what gravitated me to it was the data analysis, right? And it makes sense that you talked about your fantasy sports background and reading the stats of the players on the back of the cards. You and I are wired kind of similarly in that regard in terms of those two things. And so it makes sense that I was drawn to your content from a data analysis standpoint. It seems like maybe you guys have had to evolve a little bit because you're covering so much in the hobby. Now you're doing the breaking, you're doing the grading. You put together those set checklists, information for your audience on the sets that are coming out. Like, to your point, more and more new sets coming out. How would you say that your content has changed over the last few years from the data analysis part of it, maybe helping people use the data to make decisions, now to maybe more of a general, still very valuable, but more of a general hobby audience type content?
Yeah, like obviously to start, first of all, I was in business school at the time I started Slabstox. I was like actively going through business analytics classes, all that different stuff that really got me like into it on the data side to start. We really started making like really refined blogs and posts and stuff like that. That was a really narrow audience, that like, I guarantee those people that were reading it were really enjoying it, but it is tough to kind of like take those really in-depth numbers and try to translate to a wider audience. So over the years, like it definitely went from more of a pinpointed, like, hey, I want to, publish for people that are just like me, to kind of like, how do I publish for people that aren't only like me, but can actually, are just like a general public. Like you said, like that's how you grow the hobby, is being able to touch more individuals to understand the content, which is why we went a lot towards, obviously, like you mentioned, some of our more in-depth pieces are these checklist breakdowns that come out with the new sets, the different tiers of the players, where we're still touching on like different data points. It's just not as like, I'd say like dollar driven, so to speak, now, because I think in the end, like as the hobby has evolved, as the market has evolved, a lot of it's come down to like the eye of the beholder and what people actually subjectively want to collect or want to buy. And that changes constantly. We used to make these different things, which people loved, which were like the multiplier for the Bowman Chrome autographs. Problem is that once you go through like 4, 5, 6 years of the market evolving, these things switch so often that it's really hard to apply these things, historically set over set over set. Obviously there's some general concepts you can take, but in the end, like publishing like set data like that, people start to hold you to it, and that's where it kind of starts to become like, like what is really like, I guess the meat and potatoes is the way to put it, that people should be seeing, should be understanding, and then letting the audience and the customers and the buyers and sellers of cards drive the discussions too. For us, it's like we've always kind of operated on an Instagram basis of bring data to the table, or bring trends to the table, or bring news to the table, and let people take it from there, right? Like let people, comment what they want, let people discuss back and forth with each other what they want. I think that that's a really valuable way for people to learn. That's how I started learning myself, which is reading anything that people would be going back and forth on online, and then trying to make up my own, opinions and decisions from there, which I think is really imperative to people having an actually happy collecting journey. Isn't as much, what is this person saying? I'm going to do that too, versus like, what is this person saying? Do I care about this? Do I not? Do I agree with it? Do I not? And then going from there. Like, I think that's really the most important thing, is even just an individual myself in the hobby over the last 20 years is really just always, I'm always learning. There's always new stuff I'm learning, but in the end, like you mentioned too, like, we started covering just baseball. Well, not everyone collects baseball. And now we're like covering pretty much every major sport, and then every ancillary sport too. So like, we really do have our toes in a lot of different buckets. That's a weird phrase to use, but what I'm saying, our oars in the water for many different things. And it's been fun to see the evolution, and it's definitely kept me, like I said, learning and on just kind of a growth in the hobby myself, which, a lot of people over 20 years be like, well, how much more is there to learn? Well, there's always something to learn. I guarantee you that. Like, I've been doing this every day for 20 years basically, and still learning stuff.
I know, that's what keeps me in it too. And I think that's all really, really well said. There's a lot of great stuff in there. I mean, one thing you said is like, the hobby's always evolving. I mean, the world is always evolving. The hobby's always evolving. So you got to stay relevant with helping people learn. And to your point about maybe something that we published a few months ago, or, a few years ago for sure, we got to bring new relevancy to it on a daily basis. So Slabstox is always doing a great job of that. Then from like just the multiple sports and everything, not only do you guys cover baseball, basketball, football, but I notice you're big into soccer, some F1, you mentioned some tennis, probably some golf in there, all sorts of the other sports. And so I think that one thing that I want to go back to real quick that we've kind of glossed over is that you guys not only create content on a regular basis, but you're also participating in the hobby from a attending card shows basis, from a ripping wax, breaking on Fanatics Live, like you mentioned. I mean, you guys are, and you're grading, you're probably buying raw singles and grading them and touching and feeling that a lot, right? So you are a hobbyist first, I would say, and then you also do an amazing job creating the content to educate the hobby. What would you say as you're doing all of that and you're kind of towing the line between content creator and hobbyist? What would you say the biggest opportunities are for all of our audiences that are familiar with the current hobby landscape moving forward? Because you're right in the trenches with the trends on a minute by minute basis. What would you say the biggest opportunity or opportunities are that you see moving forward for the people that really already know what's going on in the hobby?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like, I think it's been the same ever since like grading really became a thing, which I know grading's been around for a long time, but I graded my first card in 2012. I sent a Prism, I think it's a Ricky Rubio green to BGS back in 2012, and I sent a Jeremy Lamb Prism green rookie beat to BGS as well, because those were the first really Panini basketball packs as opening was 2012 Prism back when it released retail, $3 a pack or $2 a pack, whatever it was. And ever since then, it was kind of the realization that like, you can make more out of the value you're spending, either if it's opening packs or if it's buying singles or whatever it is, by going through the grading process. And I don't really care what grading company you use. Everyone picks different ones for different reasons. But if you're able to, kind of like either if it's new sets releasing or if it's new sets or if it's sets within the last 5 years releasing, like make this kind of like different touch points that you want to do in the hobby, if it's prospecting, if it's current players, whatever it is, and seeing like where you can take your $20 raw card, pay whatever it is, $15 to $17, depending where you're grading, to grade it, and turning that into $50. Like you can definitely start with like $250 today and go from there. The first national I ever went to was in 2014, I think, in Cleveland. I was probably 15 years old. I went with $250, which was like an entire summer's worth of like mowing lawns and stuff like that. And, at that time, that's a ridiculously small budget to bring to the national. You're spending way more than that just to travel there, obviously. But at that time, I went with that. And, I was like, I got to make this work for what I have budget-wise. And you can definitely make it work and build yourself up fast if you take the time to learn the grading process. I see a lot of people today come to us and are like, do you evaluate my cards? Do you tell me what they're going to grade? Do you prep them for grading? I'm like, no, I don't do any of that, because no one ever did that for me back when I was learning grading. And unless you actually get those skills, I don't think you can actually like take your own knowledge base to the next level. Like, yes, there are people who do that do an excellent job, and it probably is worth it in a vacuum for a lot of people, right? Like when I was short on time, I used to have some people do that for me back in the like 2021 range, but if you're willing to invest the time, you'll get way more out of it than what you're putting into it over the long haul. And in my opinion, like with these new sets releasing, like that's the way to make the most out of it. Like if you're going to buy new baseball Topps Chrome rookies like Holiday and Churio and Jackson Merrill, I just saw like a Jackson Merrill gold auto PSA 10 out of 50 already at like $850 in the first like 2 days of auction, where like that's a really good card, but like that card probably isn't even going to get close to over $1,000 if it's just raw. Like, and a lot of people who do end up pulling those cards or buying them, like they probably are going to grade them if they buy them, obviously, but like they might not realize that that's like a great step you can take to like make that break that much more valuable, that single purchase that much more valuable. And I do think that a lot of people like know that grading is worth it, but like I would just really emphasize that like that's how you actually go from spending $200 and getting up to like a $2,000 collection, or spending $1,000 and getting up to like a $10,000 collection, is like through doing that process over and over and over again. And It's obviously gotten much more difficult to just like buy a card, have player play well, and flip it for 4 times the value these days. Like there are gains in there, but I have to stress that like the gains we're seeing today in the market off of good performances, the gains I saw back in like 2017, 2018 off of great performances, and I was fired up about it. You gain 30% of the card over the course of like a season and a half or 2 seasons, dude, I was absolutely thrilled. Like that was how I was like really getting my like excitement out of the hobby, was through like applying the sports like kind of background and research and all that stuff, and then like getting 20 to 30% gains on these cards and buying some PC cards or reinvesting into new cards. And that was just awesome. So I'm glad it's like that today, because I think it's so much less volatile now. I was just looking at Patrick Mahomes' 2017 Prism PSA 10. I think I just posted about this morning now, where like that card, yes, has a defect on it normally. So like PSA 10 pop is pretty low. And I think it's like maybe like 900, which is pretty low, I'd say, for like a card that's considered a base card. And that card has went 15% in 2 years. There's been swings of it up like 30% over that time. And there's been some dips of like 25% in that time. But in the end, like the fact that that's gained 15% in 2 years should be like a really good sign. Like obviously Patrick Mahomes has won 2 Super Bowls now back-to-back, and he's going for that 3rd one. But that used to be a card where it's like, okay, no matter what said person is doing, it's going to be on the decline. Like that's how people's kind of mindset was on it, which it was like that for a year period or a year and a half. But like to kind of see these cards and players is values adjusting based on what's happening is where the market should be. And that's how the market was. And that wasn't like that for some time. And you saw ridiculous gains for no reason in some players. And now it's like how it should be again. And I think it really provides for a good collecting experience, a good buying and selling experience. And in the end, a lot of people coming to the National too, which I think is really eye-opening for those who are maybe kind of like people, you know, there's a lot of chatter from people over the last 2 years. Oh, hobby's dead now. No, there's just not people spending, you know, ridiculous amounts on certain types of cards that used to be valuable that now aren't. And at one point probably weren't really valuable anyway. So yeah, that's a long-winded way, I guess, to answer your question.
No, that's a great segue actually into what I wanted to ask you next, which is when you look at the future of the hobby and you see people coming in, maybe on the fringe, maybe they're sports fans, maybe they've been participating in sports books, but they've never participated in cards. Maybe to your point earlier, they're fantasy sports freaks, right? They've been in fantasy leagues for 10, 20 years with their buddies, and they see cards can be a way to maybe invest in some players that they can't get on their fantasy team. Or maybe it's like their way of being in like a best ball league, right? What do you say to new hobbyists coming in that are maybe thinking about getting in? What words of advice would you give them based on the future of the hobby?
I think that like the hobby is an extremely complex thing. You know, I was a collector before my dad was a collector. My dad's been collecting now for, 5 years or whatever, since really like it's gotten obviously as a bigger thing outside of just, pre-market boom, but he loves collecting his Robin Yount autos now, but he's always like to me like, man, the hobby's so complex. And he's been learning for a long time now about it. And it's true. There's so many little things about each different set release, each rookie card and which one's the better one and all this different stuff. I think taking it slow at the start is always the right answer. I've had people who now work for me who started by not buying a card for a year. And that was probably like the most impressive thing I've ever seen, because I'm an impulsive guy. There's no way I could have waited that long, He just like would go to the store, open a pack and start to learn about some of the stuff, watch videos. Then eventually now he's like extremely into it. Just acquired a Jackie Robinson cut autograph at the National Topps Dynasty. So Slabstox Julian, shout out to you, man. He's really come a long way in, 3 to 4 years. Regardless of what you're doing, if you're getting in the hobby, I think it's extremely important to get to know people and get to know people who have done this for a while. And I know it's not that easy, probably, just walk in and make like an instant friend or through Instagram or in person, whatever it is. And it might take a little bit, but you really need to get to the point to where you're learning from others. That isn't maybe just their YouTube videos. Like, I think that you can't really beat personal talking to people and like picking up on things as you just go through time. It's not an instant thing. Made tons of mistakes in the first 5 years, and I made tons of mistakes in the first 10 years. I surely made mistakes in the last 3 to 5 years, even still collecting and buying and selling. So it's really a never-ending thing of making mistakes, finding success, making more mistakes. Hopefully you're finding more success than making mistakes eventually. And I just don't really think you can do that until you put in the time and maybe the personal understanding of what makes some of these things valuable or not valuable, which is equally as important as why things are valuable. So yeah, it really will take a little bit of time, but that's my best recommendation is really learning from others is the best way to go. But once again, it might not be just that one YouTube video, and maybe it is just that one podcast if you find the right person. Like maybe Paul here has got some great information for you on a week-to-week basis or day-to-day. I know he does. But I would always recommend, even like when people listen to our podcast or to our live shows, like make sure you listen to other people too, right? Like you're not going to really get a full perspective of the market or where people think until you do that. So yeah, it takes a little bit of time, but it's worth it.
I could not agree more. And what you said about like people that have worked with you that have had that discipline to not buy a card for say almost a year while they're learning. I mean, I wish I could be that way as well. And that's kind of what I try to tell people is like, just try to learn from others before you start making purchases. And I would agree with you. It's one of the hardest things to do for sure. And by the way, I met your dad at the National. Great guy. And I wish I could get my dad in the nooffseason.com business. He would love it, man. He's a big sports fan, but he's not into it like your dad. So I'm a little jealous. I'm glad you get to do that with your pops.
Yeah, no, I mean, I used to make my dad take me to shows, and now he's the one who is like, let's go to our show again, right? I'm tired, Dad. No, it's a great thing. It's I'm very fortunate to be able to do it with my father. I know that not everyone has that ability to, for whatever reason that might be, but I never take that for granted, and I work with him every day now. So it's really been a blessing. Sometimes it gets heated, but it's been a blessing.
I was going to say, no, but that's great. Overall, I'm sure that's a phenomenal thing. All right. Last question, Aaron. Thing you're most excited about for the future of the hobby or the future of Slabstox? Talk about Slabstox if you want here, what you guys got going on. What are you cooking up? What are you excited about?
Yeah. First of all, for the future of the hobby, once again, I think that the more that people help support each other, the better it gets. And it's going to be an interesting next 5 years to watch the evolution of it, because I went through all the different licenses changing since like 2008. I'm not like 1990s, 1980s. Obviously, I'm just not that old to experience that. So I don't want to speak like I've experienced having like 15 manufacturers and them all consolidating, but I've at least went through kind of like this exclusive license era. And I'm very interested to see how Topps and Fanatics take the NFL and NBA business and what they do with that. And there's obviously things that Panini did that people love. There's a ton of things that they did that they didn't like, including myself. But from a brand perspective, like Panini started really well out of the gate. I was a huge Prism basketball collector early on, huge National Treasures buyer early on. A lot of that stuff over the years has really gotten diluted, has really gotten expensive for not more value, and I think it's really hurt their brand. But Fanatics Topps has put in a really good blueprint into the baseball world, and are starting to apply that to soccer, starting to apply it to tennis, starting to apply it to F1. And I'm sure there will be, things that work out over the next 5 years, things that don't work out. But in the end, like I'm really interested to see how them coming back into NFL and NBA possibly makes the hobby not only bigger and better, but those products, what they do with them compared to what Panini did with them. So for me, like that's, I think maybe just as like an active hobby participant, what I'm the most excited about. And then from a Slabstox perspective, we got a lot of fun stuff coming up. So right now I'm actually at the Topps Transcendent VIP event in Baltimore. I just went to it last night with Gunnar and Natalie Rushman were there. This was my first time I've ever done this. I said I've been collecting for 20 years. I've been running a business for 5+ years in the hobby. How have I not done this yet? So finally went out and bought a ticket, and it was a really cool experience. And today I get to go to the game. I got one of the golden tickets, luckily, and I get to go and sit in a suite at the Orioles game. I've never been in an Orioles game before, so here's a beautiful ballpark. But coming up very soon with the U.S. Open, we should be having some really fun announcements for the Topps Chrome Tennis release plus the U.S. Open. So I can't speak too much yet on that, but next week, mark your calendars, August 21st, if you like tennis, or also August 20th, possibly. So should have some really fun things coming there. But really the Topps Chrome Tennis release for me, like I've been playing tennis pretty much my entire life. I played twice in high school, mixed in with some AAU basketball, and my mom was a huge tennis player. So it's something for us that we're really excited about. And I've been collecting the set that they released last year that not everyone loved, but I loved parts of it. And now this new set's going to have an absolutely loaded checklist. So it should be really fun.
That's very exciting. Very exciting. Aaron Nook, slabstox.com, Slabstox on Instagram, Slabstox Aaron as well. Anywhere else you want to shout out where people can get information from you?
I mean, Slabstox on Fanatics Live too. Like I'm live there like 5 to 6 days a week. I'm always talking with our customers, with our viewers about everything the hobby. So like I said, if you ever want to ask questions, you ever just want to chat about the hobby, like I have a lot of hours on there for, so I never have a shortage of things that I can say and can answer questions for. So, that's for me, like the place I'm at most of the time. But yeah, DMs are reachable, but really join those live streams and ask me questions. I'll answer.
Slabstox on Fanatics Live. So speaking of Fanatics Live, will you be at Fanatics Fest this weekend?
Unfortunately, that's the one thing I won't be at. Have a family funeral I'll be attending on Saturday, so I can't make it to that. But I'll be able to, I guess, watch from Instagram like other people probably do it, like the National. So it'd be interesting to be on the other side of it and watching like that, because normally every big event that happens, like the National and stuff like that, I try to obviously go to, but I can't go to that one. So.
All right. Well, sorry to hear that. Well, luckily we will be there. So if you need any information on Fanatics Fest at all, hit me up and we'll try to give you the inside scoop. But you're right. I'm sure there will be a plethora of content coming from Fanatics Fest. Aaron from Slabstox, thanks again for joining us on the Sports Card Strategy Show, my man.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Paul. I really appreciate it.
All right. Lefty, before we get to the breaking news that happened while Aaron and I were talking, let's just talk about that. That was some great stuff from Aaron. I mean, he knows his stuff. He's been in the hobby for a while. He's a content creator like us, uses data to make decisions, but then adapts along the way, right? And things change in the hobby. He's done a great job. And now he's putting a lot of his effort into breaking and being on Fanatics Live. And so a lot of similarities. Wow, that was rough for me. A lot of similarities between us, although, not the breaking part, but definitely the content creating and participating in the hobby. So I enjoyed it with Aaron. Now, Lefty, before we get to the breaking news, Aaron talked about tennis. Yeah. And I saw you get really excited. Talk about it.
Man, I think that tennis might have a big run in media over the next couple of years. I think it makes sense when big companies are getting into it, and it's a good time to get into tennis. The big three are kind of moving their way out, and so that's a good time for you to be able to pick up some new names and things like that. And literally, as we were finishing that interview, Jannik Sinner wins yet another game, and so it's just like Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz both being in the same Topps Chrome release, like that's huge for the hobby, huge for the sport. Them being produced by a actual licensed vendor now. It's a very, very good sign. I'm excited that Slabstox is actually covering it. He actually is one of the only Instagram accounts that I've seen that's even talking about it, which it's a sport that I'm watching a lot lately and watching a lot over the last couple of years. And I'm a big fan of Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner, and they're both the new 1-2s of this next generation. So excited about that. And then I also loved when you guys were talking about doing stuff with your dads. My dad actually texted me this morning and he goes, "Hey man, just been watching what you guys have been doing. I guess I should sell my Jackson Holiday cards that I got." And what he actually said was, "I guess I should sell that young Orioles guy that's going crazy." And so I was like, "Yeah, Dad, you should."
Tell Pops to text sports cards to 1-833-992-5727 so you can get those sell alerts.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's awesome. Love Pops McKee. Had a great time with him at the Dallas show and look forward to future Dallas shows with your dad, with you and your dad. So that'll be good. Lefty. Okay. So there's two questions that we're going to get to in the live chat. But first, what happened? What happened while Aaron and I were talking there?
Man, this couldn't have been more crushing of a time. But as of 14 minutes ago, Vikings wide receiver Jordan Addison goes down at practice with an injury after going up for a contested ball and is now being carted off the field, per Alec Lewis, who covers the Minnesota Vikings. So the Vikings situation gets even worse potentially with the number 2 overall receiver going down behind Juice, as he is referred to. So I don't know who's going to be on the field in a Vikings uniform in a couple weeks, man. It's like they just can't stop getting out of the way. And this is football, guys. This is what we talk about. This is why it's so important to be super, super tactical with your purchases with football. There are so many injuries, and there will be injuries. It's basically a war of attrition out there. It's like who can take the most punches over the season is going to end up winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'm looking at their depth chart right now, and there's not much other than Jay Jets. So there's no one I'm really super excited about. But a couple questions before we hit him with the outro here, Lefty. Brian Macklin asked about Junior Caminero, recently called up. Are you guys putting him up to auction this weekend or holding? What are your thoughts on Junior Caminero?
Well, my thoughts are Junior Caminero is a guy that we talked about last year. Chad was saying that he was going to buy back in the off season as September ended last year. I did not buy back into Junior Caminero because it didn't fit our explanation of buying back or selling at the call up. And then actually, interestingly enough, when I was looking at Slabstox Instagram, they have a post as of 5 hours ago about Junior Caminero's cards. And it says, would you buy a Caminero orange out of 25 PSA 10 today? Because it's almost $1,500 less than when it sold in March. And so people could have been taking a bath on Caminero right now if they paid big in March, expecting him to get back into the majors this year. If you do have Caminero, go ahead and sell him. I think you can get out now and flip into another prospect pretty easily. He is going to be a liquid guy, but at the same time, he's not a guy that we recommended getting back in on this year because he's already made the call up. And with the Rays news about Franco, and then they're actually not as good this year as they're projected to be anyway, it's just not a good time to be getting in on him.
All right, good stuff. That one guy says I have a rare Brandon Miller. When would be when would be the right time to let it go? I think at this point, with a rare Brandon Miller, I would wait for a performance spike. I think Brandon Miller is a player. We don't know if from a performance standpoint he goes down a little bit before he goes back up, but I think there will be. He showed promise as a rookie. He's on a young Charlotte Hornets team with a lot of upside, also not a whole lot of expectations. So I think what you need to do is wait for a massive game or string of games from Brandon Miller, see his general card market go up, and then look to move out of that card. Text sports cards to 1-833-992-5727 for sell alerts. Real quick, Tree Adventures in regards to the Jordan Addison injury says that sucks. What about Thielen? Well, Adam Thielen plays for the Carolina Panthers. So he played for the Carolina Panthers last year and actually way overperformed, I think, where his fantasy ADP was. So, but I don't think Jordan Addison and Adam Thielen are mutually exclusive at this point. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Lefty, McKee, any parting shots on this edition of the Sports Card Strategy Show before I hit him with the outro?
Loved what we talked about today, and it does play another question that if we use the formula, we can win even off of pitchers. So play the rock music, baby.
Let's go. Thanks so much for being here with us on the Sports Card Strategy Show. To connect with us further, please subscribe to the YouTube channel at youtube.com/Paul Hickey. Please also give us a follow on Instagram at Sports Card Strategy and on X at No Off Season Card. We also have a Discord that you could join at sportscardstrategy.com. Everyone, I'm Paul Hickey. For the rest of us here at nooffseason.com, have a great day. We'll see you again soon.